Hey, everybody, and welcome to How to Make Films and Influence People with Peter and Andrew, where we talk about our own approach to screenwriting and filmmaking, we discuss great works of cinema, and we blasphemously imagine how they could be remade. This week, we'll be talking about Parasite and giving an update on our current screenplay project that you, the audience, has been contributing to. But first of all, I'm Peter, successful filmmaker, film professor, and screenwriter, and this is Andrew.
Screenwriter, filmmaker, but not the mayor of New York City by choice.
We want to update everybody on our screenplay and answer a listener question. So the screenplay is moving along well. We're going from the outline stage. We're now writing the draft. And again, as we talked about in our last show, we're really just trying to barrel through, get this draft done without too much second guessing of is every scene as good as it could be? That's something we're sort of saving for after we finish the draft. And I think sometimes that's important just to keep the momentum going. We had a question, though, from Jenny. Jenny, who wrote in asking, how do you like it working as a team? I've tried working with a partner, and we always disagreed about what to do. It has never worked for me in terms of writing. How do you two make it work? And I think that's a great question because I've written a lot on my own. I've written with some other people in the past, but it's an interesting experience. What would you say, Andrew? How does it differ working as a team versus working on your own, and how do you make it work working as a team?
Well, I think the great thing about us is that we just never disagree about anything. And it
Makes it easy.
makes it pretty easy. That's definitely not the case. I think if you're going to work with a team, you have to have two people who are willing to give and take a little bit. And I think the thing with the teamwork is you're really going for what is the best idea or best phrasing or scene for the movie, and not is it my scene, is it my idea? And you kind of need to forget about ownership over did I say this or is this my idea, and be just open to what's the best for the film, what's the best for this movie we're writing, and know that you're both on it, you're both doing it. And so if it turns out great, that's for the best for everybody. And so if you have somebody who's not willing to, play ball like that, then I think it would be very tough. But luckily, I think we have enough experience writing on our own and just knowing kind of what it takes to get a film all the way written and the work that it takes, that we're both pretty open to, the give and take of it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Now let me correct you and tell you why my way is better. No, but
As you do, yeah.
I think that's absolutely right, and I think that give and take. I think thinking about what's the best idea, it's not whether it's your idea, it's whether it's the best idea. And I think there's also a certain element of sometimes you've got ideas that are equally good. If they're equally bad, then you both got to keep working on them. But if your ideas are equally good, I think that also is just a balancing act of sometimes you let the other guy win. Sometimes you push for it, but it's like if they're both good, I don't think it works well, and maybe I should do a better job of this, but I don't think it works well if you're saying, well, both ideas are good, but it has to be my way. I
Hmm.
think I think it both of you should be honest about what seems like the better choice for the script. If it could go either way, I think you should try and strike a balance between the two of you. Which one you go with which time. I would say compared to writing on your own, it's not necessarily always that. I mean, I think one of the strengths of writing with a team is that or writing as a team, is that you get the other ideas from the other person. I think also there's just the accountability and making sure that you actually get things done, which sometimes if you're writing it on your own is harder to do. But also, I think even your ideas can sometimes be stronger if you have to justify them to somebody else, or if you have to think, if you know that they're at risk of being replaced by somebody else's better idea, you
Right.
have to sort of sharpen your ideas. And I think you do better work when you're working with somebody else, or maybe not every time, but I think that is an interesting way to work because you have to think about even your own ideas in a different way.
Exactly. It's definitely a different way of looking at it. And I think one thing I've noticed too is even if the other person suggests something and you don't see it, But if you just go with it and kind of see where it leads, it often ends up leading somewhere unexpected that neither of you really saw coming. And so just resisting the hesitancy to be like, oh, I think this is a really good idea, but he thinks this is a good idea. Let's just go down the road and see where it goes. And then it often ends up somewhere else where you're like, oh, this is actually better than both those ideas or both of what we thought. And the unexpected nature of that, of just, letting it go and just seeing where it leads. I think that's the fun part of working as a team that you can't really do as an individual as much. It's almost like a writer's room in a way where it's just, let's just see what sticks, what comes out of this, and we don't know. And that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Just letting it sort of flow in a different way than you would have on your own. You can come up with different ideas. I think that's really helpful. So we will continue as a team writing on this project, and we'll see where it takes us. So thank you, Jenny, for your question. And now, Andrew, what have you been watching? I've been watching some good stuff. Have you seen anything recently that's caught your eye?
Oh yeah, I watched this movie called The Fly, 1980s movie with I think it's Jeff Goldblum. Have you seen this one?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I had never seen it before. Went into it blind, and yeah, very very uncomfortable watch. I would say, not necessarily a scary movie, although it's definitely horror. But it's just the visuals of it all is very. He just knows how to get you, and how just watching this unfold as this guy turns slowly into a fly, and Jeff Goldblum does a great job turning into this character of that. Um, but I was really impressed with the prosthetics, the like costumes, the way that they did it all practically, and I felt like it made it really intense in a way that I was thinking watching this, like if this was CGI, which it probably would be if it was made today, would this have the same like visceral effect on me as I watch it? And I think there's something about the way they used to do it with the practical costumes and designs and all that, that it hits harder. And I felt like that was very you just feel something when you're watching that, and it did a very good job of how it portrayed this with those effects.
Yeah, I mean it's gross. It
That's
definitely leaves
gross.
an imprint. Did you respond to the story, or is it just so overwhelming with the body horror, gore, like goo, and like is this does the story hold up? I've seen it. I haven't seen it in a little while, but
I will say, I think the story's fine. I think it's pretty straightforward in in the sense that a guy turns into a fly, but there's also I think the elements they were really trying to hit home at the end was, he wants his if he's no longer human, and how does he go on in the world and make an impact, and I can see that, and there's like a little love thing going on there, but I feel like it was all just leading up to the visual aspects of it. That's what really stuck with me. Not that that's a bad thing. I think the story was there really to serve this. How can we show all this cool stuff? That's how I came out of it, having just watched it.
yeah, I should revisit that. And the it's that's Cronenberg, right?
Cronenberg, yeah, that was
Yeah,
my first Cronenberg movie I've
David
seen.
Cronenberg, and then his son is also making some interesting work, and
Oh yeah, what is
there's
he? I don't think know what his son has made.
he did Infinity Pool, which is a
Oh,
really interesting kind of mix of speculative fiction, horror, gross out,
body
Eastern
horror.
European, all sorts of body horror. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to. You're like, okay, this is the type of movie we're going to be in. You got to adjust it. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting movie.
Great. I've been watching a little bit of The Chair Company. I don't know if so.
I've not heard of this. No.
This is the new Tim Robinson TV show.
Oh, right, right.
It's on HBO Max. So it's an actual narrative as opposed to like I Think You Should Leave, which is sketches. So this is an ongoing story about a man who works for a company. He doesn't work for the chair company. Oh, he works for like a real estate developer that's building a mall, and
They need
but
chairs.
he gets embarrassed in the first episode when they're making a big public, like a press conference, or maybe it's a company wide meeting, but he is there on stage as one of the top people, and his chair collapses under him, and it embarrasses him and hurts him and causes all these knock on effect problems. And so now he's on a personal mission to find out what was wrong with the chair company. And so it's a lot of
Oh,
him going
that's
down all these rabbit holes, and it turns out you think at first this guy's crazy. What, he just needs to accept that the chair collapsed, but then it seems like, oh no, there is a weird conspiracy with the chair company. I mean, it's just at every point lots of twists and turns. It's weird, and it is funny. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I think this is one that I almost would recommend saving to binge once it's all done, because
mm,
I think it's so weird that every given episode you're not quite sure where it's going to end, and it's it's really part of a longer story. So I think it would be more satisfying to see it when you can see the whole thing.
all
But I'm
condensed.
along for the ride. It's interesting to see how it develops. It's interesting because it's so clearly that same sense of humor from I Think You Should Leave.
Hmm.
But what if we then need to linger with these people and not just see them once and move on?
It sounds like a sketch idea, like the idea of a chair collapsing. What's the company behind this chair? That sounds like a sketch idea. So it just like played out over a longer period. Does it turn into
Yeah,
like, is it like a mystery? Is it still comedy though? Is it still pretty comedic?
it is comedic, but it's, I mean, in the sort of like harsher, like I Think You Should Leave kind of sketches. There's
Hmm.
it's a weird show. I mean, there's one really sweet scene where he's talking to his teenage son, uh, having caught his teenage son drinking alcohol, and the scene though is about how the teenage son is then confessing to his dad, when I drink 2 or 3 beers, like I really don't want to drink any more than that because that ruins the fun. But if I drink 2 or 3, things just get a little funnier, and I'm having a good time. And it's just this very weird, like that's I don't personally drink, but it's like that's like such a mature, a weirdly mature
Perspective.
response to drinking, or like approach to drinking, that it's just not what you're expecting to hear from the teenager that you caught.
Right.
So it's a anyway. So there are some funny moments. There's some unexpected moments. If you don't like, I Think You Should Leave. I don't know how you would possibly enjoy this. If you do like it, I think it's really worth checking out. But it is different because it's not a laugh a minute in the same way.
Right.
You have to sit with it a little longer.
And do the episodes end like with a completion of a story? Is it like a satisfying ending every episode, or is it always a cliffhanger
It's
where it's
pretty
like,
much a cliffhanger. I mean, they're only, I think, three or I've seen 3 episodes. I think well, and if you're listening to this, I'm sure the show will be out. But the as it goes, it seems like each episode is sort of a cliffhanger. So it's
yeah,
I actually think it would benefit from watching it once it's all out there.
almost like a movie?
Yeah, yeah. Which I would say, compared to Friendship, which written by different folks but starring Tim Robinson and kind of a similar vibe, I would say I'm liking Chair Company better, and I feel like it's more to the spirit of I Think You Should Leave.
Tim
And
Robinson
Friendship
didn't write
was a
Friendship.
little harsh, a little hard to watch.
It's hard to watch.
And we'll be right back after this.
Quaker Oats oatmeal has been America's breakfast of choice since before the car was invented. And if it was good enough for your great great grandpa, it's good enough for you too. Our oatmeal is not made from artificial oats, which is something we're legally obligated to mention but don't want to elaborate on. Our real oats are real good. At Quaker Oats, we believe warm and beige is all you need for a good breakfast. Do yourself a favor and eat some Quaker Oats oatmeal today.
And we are back. All right, so that brings us to the movie of the week, which is Parasite. What can you tell us about Parasite, Andrew?
Parasite, 2019, Bong Joon Ho. The logline: All unemployed, Kai-Tek's family takes peculiar interest in the wealthy and glamorous Parks for their livelihood until they get entangled in an unexpected incident. And that's very vague, but it does set up these two families, and that's really kind of what the movie is about: is two families that are on opposite ends of the social ladder, the economic ladder, and then how they come to interact, and then what kind of transpires from that. And I feel like the it's almost a family centered movie in its core, but the genres just keep changing and evolving, and it's really quite unexpected in how everything kind of ends up when you consider where you started. It's a very interesting film in that way.
This is a. I remember seeing Parasite when it first came out, and just think what. I saw it. I didn't see it in a festival or anything, but I saw it. When it came out in American theaters, and I just thought, what an amazing film, and I recommended it to everybody. And I ended up, I think, seeing it in theaters again with other people, and it just held up. And I still think it really holds up. I'm a real fan of Parasite, and it's just it's so many different movies in one. I think there's so much going on here in terms of it's this. I mean, you have all this sort of cultural, uh, commentary that's partly specific to Korea and partly sort of universal. You have this fun family story. We're a family of, I don't know if you'd call them a family of con men,
It
or
almost
they're a
feels
family
like
that, like, they being con men comes easy to them.
right. It's like it's a heist movie in that first half. You almost feel like you're watching like Ocean's 11, where they're just setting everything up and then it all pays off. And like, we did it. Here's how we're going to con this person. Then we do it. You
I
know,
mean, the fact that they didn't need a giant scene where they question the morality of this, or question like whether they'd be able to do it, makes me think it may not be the first time.
right?
Uh,
This is how they live. This is all just taken as like, yeah, of course, this is what we're going to do.
yeah,
Opportunities there. We have to do it.
and then you just have some crazy twists. I mean, the story itself, the way it sets up, is really interesting, but it has a twist that you just would never see coming, that changes everything, but it kind of doesn't change everything. I mean, it's just the perfect twist,
Mhm.
because it I like I mean, we were talking before about a different show about Barbarian, which has a lot of overlap with Parasite in
Basement
some of the
scene.
basements and twists. But the way that the twist happens in this movie, it's something where it works so well, because it upsets everything you thought was happening, but it actually fits with the bigger picture of what was happening. And
Hmm.
it's not like the movie has cheated and turned into a different movie than you thought it was. It really is. We were setting up for what's going to happen. You just didn't realize that we were setting up for it.
Yes, I feel like the you could almost say it's different genres and it changes throughout, maybe. But the theme of the movie, which I feel like it has a very strong theme, it has a message, it is trying to say something, and that doesn't change throughout the whole movie. You just don't know that's what it's trying to say or that's where it's going until the end. But when you get there, you're like, oh yeah, they set this whole thing up perfectly to make this show this theme and these ideas and the metaphors, as they mentioned multiple times, that it is when you think of it at that big picture level, very cohesive. But like scene to scene, it can be kind of jarring just how it changes.
Yeah, it's it's uh it's an interesting. I think there really are three families that it's following, and you don't even realize at first that I mean, you're first introduced to one family, and we see this family that's living in pretty poor conditions, and it's a brother, sister, and then two parents, and they seem like, I mean, they have a certain togetherness that it doesn't seem like this is a broken, dysfunctional family. I mean, they're dysfunctional in a sense, but they're I mean, they're con men and whatnot. But it's the
They're
fact that
united.
they actually spend that time together and they work together. They're folding the pizza boxes and they're doing this together. It's it's kind of sweet and wholesome in a way. And then
Hmm.
we meet the other family that is better off, that's very well off, and it seems like there's this contrast between the two families. But then it turns out there has been a third family the whole time, or at least a couple that we
Hmm.
didn't really realize we were seeing. And I think that's both a twist
Yeah.
that, like, oh wow, yeah, you did introduce those, like, you did introduce this character, but we didn't realize we should pay attention to them. But I think the fact that there's a character that sort of blends into the background that you don't think much of, but then ends up playing a major part in the story, is kind of the point too, or is one of the points that the movie is making. Is that you think that these people are just invisible and just are, they're serving their own little function to help you out, and they don't have lives of their own. But now the movie then says, nope, those people really have their own life and their own goals, and that might
Hmm.
conflict with yours.
It's a the perspective switch on that. Like it, you've been looking at it from the wealthy perspective, these people, but you've been looking at the first family as from their perspective because they're kind of introduced first, and you feel like a connection to them. They feel like the main characters of this movie, and so you kind of naturally want them to succeed at this morally gray area, and then you kind of see how they're treated. But then this third family comes along and kind of reverses it to where you're like, oh, I've been looking at them as if they don't really exist in the same way that the really wealthy family has been looking at our other family. And so it's kind of this, it's a great way to show the different dynamics and to force the viewer to see in themselves the different dynamics, even if they don't know that at the time. But you are kind of forced into that situation of realizing, I see it from all these different angles as well.
I mean, I think that's a really interesting sort of commentary level. I think there's also, I mean, it's interesting. One family, I'm not sure we get the family name of the third couple, but we have the Parks and the Kims are the two main families that we're following, and those are, Smith and Jones of Korea. Those are sort of like that's the most common last names, or first, I mean, the family name in
Yeah.
Korea.
Yeah.
And um and so I think there's something symbolic about that these are representing society in a way, and I think that's an interesting point. Um, my dad lived in Korea for a couple of years, and he we actually watched Parasite together, and he made a couple points that I hadn't picked up on as someone with less Korea specific knowledge. But
Hmm.
he made the point that in Korea, uh, it's very ethnically homogenous. That almost everybody is ethnically Korean, and there's not
Right.
visually much difference between Koreans, especially South Koreans. I mean, I think there's a height difference with North Koreans and South Koreans now, but I think
Hmm.
within South Korea, there's not really any visual difference, and so what you end up seeing is that there are other sort of signifiers of class and distinction in society that, people universally find a way to separate one group from another. But he said that smell is a big one, and
Oh,
that
really?
culturally, like, and that I think that comes up in Parasite, because you see
Yeah.
the better off family remarking about the smell of the poorer family, and that is more significant than you might think coming from, outside Korea, because there's so many fewer things to distinguish people from each other.
That makes sense. I thought the smell was a clever way of just showing the divide, but the fact that it's actually used that way, that's very interesting. And that the smell is kind of the catalyst to a lot of this as well, especially in that last act when they just kind of had enough. And there's just so many moments where that's just kind of throughout the film. But it's interesting that that's how you show the difference in classes, because they do look the same, and there'd be no way to know if you just stood them side by side who's the rich person who's not, outside of what they're wearing, you know.
Right. And I think, a couple other Korea points, and I'm not Korean, I'm not Korean American, so I'm speaking from a place of ignorance in many ways, but this is what I've been told. But that there is a uh, there's been a lot of explosive growth in South Korea over several decades, and I was actually in Korea last year, and it was interesting because went to a museum, and you think of going to a museum in England and you see, oh, these are the great works of Shakespeare. Or you go to a museum and you see the paintings of Rembrandt, and you see like different these. This was great moments of our cultural past, and in South Korea right now is like one of their biggest cultural moments for in terms of world impact on world culture right
Right.
now with BTS and K-pop and Korean film and television is
Mhm.
right now is one of their biggest moments. And so that was just interesting to see, like a museum is showing BTS because it's like this is the
Right now.
biggest band in the world. It's not the Beatles, it's the band that's currently right now.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting reflection on that. But there's been so much growth over several decades in South Korea, and my dad was there in the 70s and said when he was there it was a poor country, and that so much changed so quickly, so that you had this huge generational gap where parents grew up in a poor country and their kids grew up in a wealthy country, and the
Right.
just a big divide there. But what that also meant was when you have all that growth, you have a lot of businesses starting, businesses failing, fortunes being made, but also people losing out. And so there's this interesting point that when I first saw Parasite, I thought of it as there's a rich family and a poor family, but and that's kind of true in a pure dollars and cents way, but it's not that the rich family comes from old money and that the poor
Mm.
family are dirt farmers. The part of the reason that the dad and that the family, the poorer family, is in the situation they are is because he had a failed business and has debts, and that's true for the third family as well. And the second family, the richer family, has been successful in the new economy. But so it's not so much the story of rich people and poor people, like the lord of the manor and the serfs in the field, but it's more in this time of growth, some people have succeeded and some people have failed. But that almost can be, there's a lot of inequality along with that, but there's almost a more personal failure aspect to that it's more painful knowing that there was the potential for success and yet you failed, as
Hmm.
opposed to I was born into poverty and I stayed in poverty. The idea that people have gotten wealthy and you didn't is a tough part of that.
Yeah, that idea of this could have been me if it wasn't either for my mistakes or blaming somebody else for an outside situation, that they do, like, in their hearts believe, I could have had this, I can do this. And even at the end, the son is like, I'm going to buy that house. And it's, you kind of know as an outsider, you're like, no, you're not. Like, the chances of that happening just in your situation, it's not that that's impossible. It's just, you know where they are and you've seen it and you've seen the dynamics and how this works. And with this outside perspective, but inside, the way that the families think and believe, they act like this could be them if only. And I think the movie's trying to say more of like, that's not actually the case. There's a lot more going on here. It's not as fair as they might play it out to be or assume it is. That there is something deeper here at a societal level. And I think that theme resonated with a lot of people when it came out in 2019, like just worldwide. And I think it's still is very much applicable today, and maybe is even more important than it was back then. That these themes of this huge inequality gap and just how it's almost impossible for somebody from this bottom level to work their way up anymore. Those ideas have really played out throughout the world, I feel like, and I think that's part of the reason it was so successful at the time, is it just hit on this thing that people were feeling and that a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And I think the just what you're saying about that sense of it could have been me and struggling with those kind of feelings, I think that is it. The film is not, everybody should know their place. It's not like a Downton Abbey. It's like everybody
Right.
knows their place, and there's
Mhm.
the lord of the manor and the butler, and everybody's happy in their respective roles. It's also not revolutionary in terms of it's wrong that there's a lord of the manor and we're going to rise up and overturn him. It's more, it could have been me. And so if I just forge the document, it now is me. And there's
Yep.
the difference between you and me is so small that I don't think that it really is a difference. And I should be able to just step into that position. And I think it's really playing with that kind of those kind of feelings, which I think is really, I haven't seen another movie do that in the same way.
Yeah, because it doesn't like force the message on you. It's just playing it out like these ideas, and that's really interesting in how it seems like anytime a character or one of the families gets any sort of power, they immediately start abusing it or using it to their advantage and to nobody else's. There's really this lack of like, I'm not going to help anybody else out because this is a dog eat dog world. Like, this is, if I don't have it for myself, then somebody's going to take it from me and I won't have it. There's this whole idea of like, there's not enough here and I got to take it, and I can't let anybody else come up because then they'll take it from me. And so the whole way it plays out is you kind of have nobody who's the good guy or the bad guy, because everybody's just almost like a pawn to the system in a way. Like they're just doing what's best for them because they truly believe that's the only way to succeed. And there is none of this, we can all help each other. There's no message of, if we all come together we can make this world a better place. It's just kind of like, this is how it is right now. I'm just showing you, I'm presenting it to you, and you can see it from all these different perspectives. And I'm not telling you what to think about that, or what to do as a result. I'm not asking for change. It's just, this is it. And then what do you think? Sit with this, think about it, and what does that really mean? And I think that's really a great way to start a conversation about those topics, which makes this film, I think it takes it to another level because it doesn't force you to say this is the conclusion to draw, but it also has a very strong perspective and theme in what it's showing.
I think you're right on the money. I also think, you know, not to say anything negative about the film Mirror by Tarkovsky, and we
Classic.
all love that film, but to me, Parasite is just such a success because it deals with so many of these themes and so many of these interesting, complicated ideas, nuanced and socially important ideas. It really is playing with all of these ideas in a really like entertaining, engaging plot. And so I think
Mhm.
to me that's more fun. I
Oh yeah.
think it means that it's economically more viable because it just works better as a movie to watch. Um, but I think also people can watch Parasite, think it was an amazing movie, and not pick up on any of the social commentary. I mean, it's just,
Right.
could you imagine that crazy twist? I never saw that coming, and not even think deeper. And I think a movie is better for working on multiple levels and saying, like, you don't have to engage with this as if you're taking a graduate level class on it. You can also
Mhm.
just go watch it for fun and still get a lot out of it. And I think that's where Parasite works so well. It packages these ideas into such an engaging, twisty, turny, thrilling kind of package.
It really is set up. Like, that the amount of work it took to write this and to like get this whole thing finished, this story. because every little scene, everything that's said and done just fits so well that it's like beginning to end, it all is one cohesive story and idea and thought that I think the amount of work that went into that, it really shows because it works on so many levels. Like that's why it works on the you can see it just pure entertainment, you can see it for social commentary, you can see it for both, and it works on every level because of the detail and really just how well written and designed the story was from the beginning. And then on top of that, you have incredible acting, cinematography. It's just a beautiful film to watch as well, that it all kind of works together so well. And it's kind of rare to see something that is this well polished for, a movie of this size.
I agree. I agree. I think it's a phenomenal movie. I think it works, and I would recommend it. I mean, it's got some it's got some scares, but it's so maybe not for young children, but
It,
but
rated
man,
R.
I would recommend this and have recommended it to people. Um, I think it's really good. But this brings us to the question: if we were going to recreate it, remake it, Hollywood studio comes and says, "We want to do this, but we need to do a family version of it." What is your approach? What is the family version of Parasite?
I feel like the family version has been done, and I don't think it'd be that hard to do if you took out just the horror elements of it. The there's a few brutal scenes. There's a few scenes you'd have to take out, but like the message overall of just having a poor family and a rich family and they come together, that's very family friendly. I think it's been done a lot of times in different movies. And I think at the core of the movie, you could show this in a family friendly way. I don't think it'd be as fun. I don't think it'd be as engaging, but the ideas of that, of just showing these different dynamics in class and families, could be easily done. What do you think?
Yeah, I think in many ways, I think Parasite is. I think the family version of Parasite is the Parent Trap.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, it's
something like
slightly different, but it's like we're going to pull a con on these two families, and we slightly different motivation, but
that.
we are pretending to be a different person than we are, and it's going to bring these families together in an unexpected way. And uh, I think I think in the family version of this, you want a clearer resolution of
It needs a
the
happy ending.
answer is we should just like accept each other and support each other and love each other.
Right. Yeah, it would need a strong message of like hope or like community, something at the end to tie it all together to make people feel good. Um, and for kids to understand, this is what's going on.
I mean, and I think to the point that this movie has been done in the family version. I think the idea that we are all the same and yet some of us have succeeded and some of us have failed. I think that's what's so painful and compelling about Parasite, because it's not the rich versus the poor. It's this dog eat dog world where some thrive and some dwindle. But I think in the family version, you disregard that and you just end on the note of we actually are the same, and so that's fine. And not you don't go the next step of we are the same, and that's why we're going to be more brutal in how we treat each other because we're fighting over the scraps.
Because we're fighting over this reps. Yeah, it almost feels like Parasite is the adult version of one of these family friendly movies. It's like he took this idea that's been around for ages and just added a new twist on it in a modern way, in an adult way. You could make that argument. I don't know that that's what he did, but I think there's definitely connection there to these themes.
Yeah. Okay, so now if you did this in the no budget indie version, what would your approach be? And this is, I mean,
Yeah,
for one thing, part of the movie deals with wealth, and so that's a little tricky to do in no budget. Um, but at the same time, the movie is largely in
still
one home. I mean, I
right.
guess we see a couple homes, we see some trips out to the hospital or to work or whatever, but it's much of it is shot in the home. and so there is an aspect of that that you could do in a no budget way. But any thoughts on anything bigger than that? What you would do?
Google is saying this had an $11.4 million budget, which is low. I feel like already it's not a no budget, but that's low. Um, but yeah, with the limited locations, and it's really just the original family's apartment, which is just one area, and then you have the rich house. You might have to skip the flooding scene. I don't know how much that would be. That's probably was a lot of work to do all that. But I don't think it would be that hard to transpose this into something even less of a budget, get no name actors. You could do it in two locations, and I think it would work. And that's kind of another kind of amazing thing about this movie is it's just so contained and yet so amazing and feels much bigger than it actually is when you think about it. This feels like a thriller, like a big epic movie, like a blockbuster, and it's really, when you think about it, very contained story and locations.
Yeah, I think it gets a lot out of being so contained and kept into this small area. I mean, I think if you never left the house, I think that would be an interesting constraint, and I think you would lose. I mean, I think for no budget, I think you could have a dingy apartment and a nice house, and I
Hmm.
think two locations is fine. But if you thought of it as we're going to stick to one location, I think then you would lose. I think you would lose some of the humanity of the poorer family. Or yeah, I think you gain something by seeing their struggle. I think if
Yeah.
we saw them only entering the rich family's house, then you wouldn't sympathize with them the same way. I think the
It'd be a
idea
different
that
story.
they are coming in to this house as outsiders, I think if we only saw them in the house, we would feel a little bit more on guard about them. But I think spending so much time with them in their home first, we then feel like I think we're more on their side as they start their con of entering the rich family's house. So I
Right.
think that would really change things if you did confine it to only one location.
The themes just wouldn't work of the movie. Got to see the juxtaposition for that to work. And it's, if you did have it in one house, I feel like it would definitely lean more towards a horror movie where it's just all in the house. You wouldn't, I don't think you'd get the class differences as much, and it would be, you'd have to do more of a, this is the horror movie, that's the gimmick in this, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as constrained as the film does actually feel, I think it works better with yeah, with having a few locations as opposed to one location.
Yeah.
I also think the acting. I mean, I'm not familiar with these actors, and so I don't know how expensive they are in Korea. I thought they were all very strong
Oh
in their
yeah.
performances, and so I do think that having so I don't know if they're super expensive actors or if they're just very skilled but just working actors. So I don't know if there's a savings to be had there, but I do think as cool as the story is, I think there are a lot of points where you need the actors to really deliver, both in their
Yeah.
believability, but also in you sympathizing with them and seeing the nuance in their performance. So I think this would not be a story where you could just plug anyone into those roles and have the movie work as well.
Yeah, I feel like Bong Joon Bong Joon Ho knew what he was doing when he hired these actors. Like he knew that they could do this, and with his directing, the way that he sets it up and directs the shots inside the house to make you feel like, after watching, like, I know the layout of that house, I know where everything is, I know how people move throughout the space, and to set everything up the way he does and to really make it more intense with that directing, the style that he directs this in, adds a lot to this as well, that I feel like in somebody else's hands you could lose a lot of that tension and the relatability to the space if somebody else were to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that takes us to the TV series. So if you were going to do this as a TV series, I mean, I think a wacky sitcom would probably be the way to do it.
Just the
Uh,
sitcom, they come in every day and work. There is a pitch for that where they show up and you just have some funny things happen. They go home at the end of the day. But I
it would
think
be
for
funny if they kept doing cons. If you had a sitcom about like a con man family, that every episode they're going to a new house and like ingratiating themselves and inserting themselves into the life of that family. They're trying to accomplish one goal, and at the end of it, either they're found out and have to run away, or they accomplish their goal and leave. But that actually could be a fun show, different in tone, but that could be a
very
fun show.
different tone. That could be. I think that'd be fun. The to keep it the same tone and style. I think you could do it if you would just expand a little bit into these people's lives. I think there's a lot there. The way that he developed these characters, they feel very real, and you feel like they have lives outside of the movie that isn't shown. And even like at the end when you have um, the main woman of the house and the driver, and they're going grocery shopping and doing all these errands, it feels very natural to just be out in these different scenes. And so I think you could really expand on this whole concept and have it go out throughout the world, throughout, I'm assuming they're in Seoul, South Korea, whatever the big city is, and just kind of open it up. And I think there's a lot there because these characters are so strong and so interesting.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I think you could expand on it. It would be. I think the thrill of the twists. I think it would just be very different if in episode 5 there's a twist that you can't believe. I think that
Right.
would feel very different than halfway through the movie there's a twist that you
Would
can't
you
believe.
stick with it without the twist? Because it's kind of a long like build up, and I would see if you just had the first episode and you're just bored with it, you don't give it the chance. So you would need something in each episode. I don't know if you could do that. What do you think?
Well, have you watched any Korean television?
I've seen some of the K dramas. Yeah.
Okay. I've only seen Crash Landing on You or Crash Landing into You. I think
Yeah.
whatever.
I watched part of that one.
I watched that. I
Not the
really
whole
liked it. My wife and I watched it. We got really into it. And the episodes are like an hour and a half long. It's like
It's
20
almost a movie.
episodes of an hour and a half long. I mean, so it's just an enormous amount of story being told.
Yeah.
And in that they really do go on like
Tangents.
you'll spend several hours in a North Korean village that you then and then you move on to other things happening in the story, and then so like you I just am not a good judge of Korean television and what the norms are. This is really the only show I've watched, but their approach to time was very different than what I'm used to. So
Mhm.
I do think maybe in Korea you could have or in Korean television, which is popular around the world, but you could have you could spend time and people would watch even though you don't get to the twist until later. I think in terms of an American drama, it's I would just expect the twist. You would want the twist to happen at the end of the pilot. It's like we
Mhm.
you set up, you think you know what the pilot's going to be, and then an hour in, it's like nope, there's a twist, and now we're going to explore the consequences of that twist over the rest of the season. But I just don't think you can wait till halfway through the season to get to the twist.
And then once you get the twist, is there enough there to keep the story going? Because after that twist happens at basically the midpoint of the movie, you're just full force going. Like it's very fast. Things happen quickly, and it just kind of it's like a stone that could start going down the hill. Like you just can't stop it once it starts going. There's not really a tangent you could take and like buy yourself time, especially with two people locked in the basement. So I think that'd be tough, a tough pitch in for an American audience. But like you said, if it was a different style of story structure, I've seen some like modern Indian movies that do this structure where it's like they start at one place and then they just kind of go forward and then they end. And like an American story, it's almost like a circle. Like you want to connect the end to the beginning thematically and like where they are in space and they've learned something. But in a lot of these stories, it's almost like biblical in a sense of like it just has a beginning and an end, and they're not necessarily connected. They just ended up somewhere else, and that's the story. And you were here at this time, and you just never go back. This person
Mm.
shows up, and then they're gone. And I feel like you could do this with that story because, again, the characters are so interesting that they could just do all these different tangents and side stories, and it'd be very interesting to follow. But it would be a very different movie or very different story. I think you'd have to change how that all connects.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I still like the sitcom version, but
There's
would
something there.
would any of these be an improvement on the film itself?
I think it's a hard no. Like this film is very close to a perfect movie. I don't know how you can tell this story so succinctly, so connected in any other way that would be better. You could do it differently. I don't think it would be better. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. It's interesting to explore more stories with these people, whatever. But no, I think this movie is just it tell. This is what a discrete unit of cinema is supposed to be. It
Hmm.
tells the story, goes on these thrills, and then you're done. And I think this is really showcasing what the feature film form is best at, as
Yes,
opposed to the TV version. And so, yeah, the family version, the no budget. I think this is the best version of it.
absolutely.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our discussion of Parasite. Andrew, final words. Would you recommend it? Is it the greatest film of all time? Where do you land on it?
I would highly recommend it. One of the best films I've seen. I would put it on that list. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I would recommend it. I uh, I
Is it
also think it should be said it's a film that's in Korean with subtitles, and I think that there is something that it's a different experience watching a film with subtitles. I think nowadays, especially I think a lot of people watch films with closed captioning on.
and
And I
yeah,
think that's not unusual. And it is different, though. I think you do inevitably lose something if you need to have your eyes on the subtitle. Like I'm not
right.
afraid of reading. I'm not against that, but you do lose something in terms of how much attention you can pay to the performance if you need to be
Hmm.
reading the screen. And so I do think that that is a challenge that comes with this,
Just
but
learn Korean. I think
just
that would
learn
just help
Korean to watch this and just hope that no directors make films in other languages.
our
Just
languages.
English and Korean. That's it.
Those are your languages to learn. Would you say
But
it's better than The Godfather then?
no, I would not. But I mean, in what ways is it not better? I mean, it might be just as good. I don't know. I wouldn't say that it screams that it's better than The Godfather to me, but
But to you,
uh,
this would be one of the best movies you've ever seen. Top 10, you think?
I think top 10. I
Wow.
think top 10. We'll have to put together some lists. We'll
Yeah,
share on a future episode. But I think this would probably be top 10.
for you.
Uh, I just think when you think about your top 10 films, I think did you enjoy it? Did it feel like something you'd never seen before? Did it feel like this is doing film right? Uh, and all of those, I would say yes for Parasite.
This is just a film right up your alley. I can feel it. You really
That's
loved it.
true. I do like the palette with which he's painting, which
Yeah.
might not be everyone's favorite, but I like these kind of themes and this kind of darker look at society and life. So that is another sweet spot for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Parasite, I think it's getting a high recommendation from both of us. So check it out if you're interested. And there we have it. Thanks for joining us for this episode of How to Make Films and Influence People. Check us out at howtomakefilmspodcast.com, and we'll see you next time.